If you're an educator, you already know that managing classroom behavior, well, it can be one of the toughest parts of the job. You're there to teach, to connect, but sometimes a student's behavior can just throw a wrench in everything. So today, we're going to tackle this head on with some really practical, early intervention strategies. And it really all boils down to this question, doesn't it? It's the one we're constantly asking ourselves. Do I jump in right now and risk blowing up the whole lesson? Or do I hold back and risk things getting worse? It is such a tough call. And while there's no single magic answer, there is a much better way to think about it. So here's what we're going to do. In this explainer, we're going to hit 3 key things. First, we'll get a solid framework for figuring out when to step in. Then, we'll talk about how to do it without derailing your entire class. And finally, we're going to dive into 2 super powerful evidence-based strategies that you can literally start using tomorrow. Okay, so the absolute key to making any of this work isn't some fancy new trick. It's actually a shift in perspective. It's about stopping ourselves from seeing behavior as just a problem we have to fix, and starting to see it as a message that we need to understand. So here it is, plain and simple. Behavior is communication. When a student is acting out, they're not just trying to be defiant or cause trouble. They are trying to tell you something. They're showing you, in the only way they know how, that they have an unmet need. And our job? Well, our job is to become detectives and figure out what that need is. So, what are these messages that students are trying to send? Well, most of the time, their behavior comes down to one of these 5 common reasons. Maybe they literally don't know what to do or even how to do it. Sometimes they might not even realize they are doing it. Or, and this is a big one, the behavior is either getting them something pleasant or it's helping them avoid something they find unpleasant. And this is how we turn that big idea into real action. Instead of just reacting in the moment, we can diagnose what's going on. So before you intervene, just try to run through these 5 questions in your head. Is this a skill issue? They don't know what or how? Is it a self-awareness thing? Or is it a motivation piece? This simple little checklist helps you get right to the root cause. All right, let's get into our first strategy. This is all about being proactive. It's about shaping the entire environment of your classroom before those big behaviors even have a chance to start. And it's called the interaction ratio. So what does this number mean? 5 to 1. This is pretty much the magic ratio. Tons of research shows that a positive, productive classroom is built on having 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative or corrective interaction. Think about it. 5 positives for every 1 correction. It's like you're building up this bank account of goodwill and connection with each student. Now, when you first see this checklist, I know, it can look a little intense, but don't worry about that. Just think of it as a detailed roadmap that helps you brainstorm how you can build up to that 5 to 1 ratio. We're going to break it down into 3 really simple, doable steps to get you started. Okay, here's where the rubber meets the road. First, just try to get a baseline. For one day, grab a piece of paper and make a couple of columns. Use simple tally marks to track your positive versus your corrective interactions. You might actually be surprised by what you find. Second, get really intentional about planning positive interactions that have nothing to do with schoolwork or behavior. Greeting them by name at the door, that kind of thing. And third, just take a minute to reflect on how you correct. Could it be done more privately, a little more calmly? So that's the proactive side. But what happens when a behavior keeps happening and you really do need to address it more directly? Well, that's where our second strategy comes in. And this isn't about a quick correction in the middle of a lesson. This is about a structured, respectful, one-on-one conversation. A planned discussion is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a method you plan ahead of time with clear steps to talk with a student about a specific concern. And the goal here is not punitive at all. It's collaborative. It's about understanding where they're coming from, coming up with a plan together, and really empowering them to be successful. And the structure is just beautifully simple. There are really only 4 key steps. First, you plan the meeting. You figure out a time and what you want to talk about. Second, you get the class ready so that you can actually step away for a few minutes without chaos. Third, you have the meeting itself, focusing on working together to create a plan. And finally, and this part is absolutely critical, you monitor and follow up. You have to acknowledge their effort and show them you're there to support them. Okay, so we've covered a pretty big shift in mindset and 2 really concrete strategies. We've talked about moving from just reacting to behavior to really understanding it and planning for it. So, where do you go from here? What's your first step? Let's just quickly recap the big ideas. First, and most importantly, remember that behavior is communication. Always look for the why behind the what. Second, those positive ratios really matter. That 5-to-1 goal is such a powerful way to build a proactive and positive classroom. And third, when you do have to have one of those tough conversations, plan it. Structure is your friend, I promise. And that brings us to our final thought. This doesn't have to be some huge, overwhelming change. Real change starts with just one small, intentional act. So here's my question for you. What is one positive, non-behavior-based interaction you can plan for a specific student tomorrow? Maybe it's just a high five or asking about their weekend. You'd be amazed how those tiny moments of connection build the foundation for everything else.